Have you ever walked a dog and had to pick up its feces? It's pretty gross. Pretty disgusting. Now, hold on. Wait, hold on. There's more. Imagine you do that for 9 hours every single day. And that is your full-time job. Is scooping up human feces and getting paid minimum wage to do so.
It's an evil world we live in.
That, my friends, was not a made-up idea, was not a made-up job. That was a real job in history. And it is only one of the very worst jobs ever. And today, we're gonna check out all of them.
The worst jobs in history.
The gong
If you ever think your job's crappy, try having to plunge into a pit of literal human doo-doo feces every single night. Way back in the day in good old England, some daring men made a career out of wading through human excrement. So-called gong farmers were tasked with draining out cesspits filled to the brim with offensive butt slop.
That is an insane way to put it. Butt slop. That's not even what I meant to pause it for, but I paused it when he said butt slop, and now I can't stop thinking about butt slop as a word for diarrhea. Wow.
The profession had existed for centuries, but it saw its height between the years of 1485 and 1603, also known as the Tudor period. Oi, I got a Tudor for you. Since this was way before the invention of the turlet, people were content with just slamming their cheeks down in a public latrine to pinch off a quick loaf. The other problem was the lack of availability.
Wait, where's the toilet paper there? And also the seats were literally right next to each other with no division walls. Did they all just hold hands and sing Kumbaya as they sneezed out of their booty cheek? Wow.
Towards the end of the 14th century, it's estimated that there was only one public bathroom per 2,000 people.
That doesn't
Plus,
math
keep in mind
very
that
well.
all of that human waste was just piling up in a literal stone-lined hole in the ground, so you were just dropping logs onto a mountain of timber. The local government, realizing that this horrid threat to public health was fermenting beneath everyone's feet, took action to allow the construction of private outhouses and latrines in residential areas as a way to disperse the smelly sewage. It didn't work all that well. So with dookie levels rising, help was needed to drain the pits. Enter the gong farmer. The term gong deriving from an Old English term meaning to go. They were also referred to as the much more mysterious and cooler sounding title of nightmen, as the only time that they were allowed to perform their duties was under the shroud of night, and that really sucked. There were no flashlights, spotlights, or illumination of any kind. You just had to hope that the moon was shining brightly to light your way through the filth.
Batman's cool and all, but these guys are doing the city's real dirty work.
The nightmen would enter these cesspits and drain the contents using buckets and shovels. Excrement was loaded into barrels and carted off to be dumped near the River Thames. Don't worry, it was used as fertilizer later. Maybe. These men would be knee-deep, waist-deep, even neck-deep in the stuff, which had its own risks, the first and foremost being asphyxiation.
Okay, if you're getting neck-deep in poop, that's all new at that point. Surely there's, like, in what situation is it necessary to jump neck-deep into poop?
Cesspits were often enclosed spaces with little to no ventilation, so the buildup of noxious and toxic gases was a very real threat. Although rare, a gong farmer could pass out from a lack of fresh air and drown in the waste. Another risk was poor maintenance. Cesspits were typically drained as needed, which, depending on the size of the thing, could be up to 2 years between sloppy scoops. Since these pits just sat there and rotted, it was common for stone walls to collapse in on the farmers while they harvested.
Dying in other people's feces. I mean, you literally I can't think of anything worse than that. That's not only just a horrifying way to go, but it's also insanely embarrassing. Because all your family, your friends, your loved ones, your pets, your like everybody knows that you passed away in poop. And this job just gets worse and worse.
Any scrapes or bumps would certainly get infected, which could only lead to a painful death. But these high risks were met with high reward. Since the job was less than desirable, gong farmers made quite a healthy living, about 6 pence a day. Now, I'm not quite sure what that is in non-silly sounding money, but sounds pretty good. Problem is though, gong farmers perpetually reeked from their labors and were only permitted to live in certain areas of the city, with most of the public actively avoiding them and, well, treating them like crap.
I feel like they shouldn't be treated that poorly. I mean, I get you don't want to be close to them because they stink, but it is one of those things like you have to have it or else your entire city is going to burn down. So shout out to all the nightmen out there. I'm not sure how many times in all of human history that nightmen have gotten a shout out, but if any nightmen are watching from up there, shout out to you, brother. You were doing the Lord's work. Next up, we have chimney sweepers.
Now, if you're looking for a soul-crushing, body-breaking job that pays next to nothing, you're an idiot. But I could recommend that you apply for the occupation of chimney sweep. These services were all the rage in, you guessed it, England's Tudor period. But the job has existed for hundreds of years. Rapid urbanization led to the construction of a lot of buildings, and each one of them suckers needs a source of heat. You gotta keep them English toesies nice and warm during the miserable gray winter months until the arrival of the miserable gray summer months. So a lot of fireplaces and chimneys were built to meet that demand. You do know how a fireplace works, right? Make fire, fire make heat and smoke go up through chimney and blow out the top. But all of that burning of wood and coal creates lots of icky carbon-heavy flammable deposits that build up within the chimney. Big problem, cause if that's not properly cleared out, then things can just go. And there goes not only your house, but a few neighbors' houses as collateral damage.
Whoa.
Well, the higher-ups didn't like the risk of their kingdom going up in smoke at any given time, so
If anyone comments that that guy looked like me, I'm banning you from the channel immediately. That dude did not look like me, okay? Let's not even entertain that idea.
it mandated that chimneys must be swept at least 4 times a year or face heavy fines. Thus, the employment of chimney sweeps became critical. The problem, though, is that chimneys at the time weren't exactly designed for human entry and cleaning. Bugger. Most flue networks in the building were grouped together on the roof, but could have sharp turns as they angled out towards their respective fireplaces or furnaces. To make matters even worse, regulations shrunk flue sizes down to as little as 9 by 9 inches.
Oh
This made
my.
it nearly impossible for full-grown men to slip through the cracks. The solution? Children. Really young children.
Oh, that actually does ring a bell. Like whenever chimney sweepers are portrayed, I do feel like they're children for the most part. Yeah. Okay.
Adorable, wide-eyed orphans were yoinked from poor houses and taken on as apprentices called climbing boys, with opportunities to one day grow into master sweepers themselves, if they lived that long.
A master sweeper.
If it wasn't obvious, chimney sweeping was extremely dangerous, especially for the little limber lads. Boys as young as 6 years old were sent up chimneys and told to get scrubbing. The physical dangers were abundant, as several children had died from getting stuck or horribly burned from scaling the scalding bricks.
Why would they still be hot? What? Why would it still be hot? Bro, no way anyone put a 6-year-old kid in a chimney while the chimney is on, while there's a fire going. Oh, let's test Jimmy's abilities and shove him in there while the fire is hot and burning. A lot of questionable decisions that humans have made over time, and this one's up there for one of the worst. I mean, how does this ever happen, really?
These fireplaces were almost always in use, so those chimneys were hot and ready like a carry-out pizza. Now, if the cramming didn't kill you, the scrubbing would. Soot and creosote, the organic carbonaceous byproducts of burning wood and coal, are carcinogenic. So if you're trapped in a confined space just scrub-a-dub-dubbing away while sucking up hits of cancer-causing black powder all day day, things are not going to turn out well for you. But it actually wasn't your lungs that you needed to worry about. No, it was your balls.
Okay.
Scrotal squamous cell carcinoma, also known as chimney sweeps carcinoma or just straight up scrotal cancer, was a death sentence. Something I didn't mention until now was that the young children, as a way to fit easier into the narrow hot chimneys, often went commando. No shirt, no shoes, no pants.
Whose chimney are these boys? Is this like Jeffrey Epstein's chimney? What are we doing? Bro's balls are dangling as he's 50 feet up sweeping chimneys, getting ball cancer at 6 years old, while his master is burning a fire in the fireplace. Wow.
Constant exposure to soot and such led to the development of tumors on their nethers. Once developed, they were lucky if they had a few years left in them. Sure,
That's
your sack is out
awful.
of whack, but damn, that chimney's clean.
That is awful. Like, I don't even know what's worse. What do you guys think the worst one is? Obviously, there's more, but those are really bad. Next up, though, we have the matchstick girl. I have no idea what this could be.
You've probably heard of the radium girls,
Nope.
young women of the workforce that would paint luminous numbers and hands onto timepieces in the early 1900s. Well, this is similar. Towards the end of the 19th century, matchmaking was a pretty lucrative business. Not like pairing couples up, but making literal matches.
Oh.
By the late 1800s, there were about 25 matchmaking factories across Great Britain, employing over 4,000 chaps and chapettes. The process, as with most industries at the time, involved working with some nasty chemicals. The flavor of the day here was white phosphorus, an unstable compound that burned fiercely when ignited. You know, perfect for the few seconds that you would need to set something ablaze. On top of being both easily ignitable and violently reactive with oxygen, it had the triple whammy of also being extremely toxic. Of all matchmaking jobs, roughly half were involved in the direct handling of white phosphorus, with over 80% of the phosphorus fingerers being young women. These women would come to be known as matchstick girls. Day in and day out, these women were tasked with packaging the dipped matchsticks, with an entire workforce handling as many as 10 million across a 10-hour shift, meeting the demand of the 250 million matches being burned in Britain every single day. Remember that fire is what got people through the day. Need to cook? Fire. Need to keep warm? Fire. Need to see in the dark? Fire. Need to shrink your overhead? Fire. It was the biggest blessing humanity has ever discovered, and
What's crazy to me is I'm pretty sure in Europe, like, that still is how, like, the #1 way that people heat up their houses is through chimneys and fires. But here in America, cue that epic, awesome eagle sound. We just click a button on our wall and the whole house heats up. Don't ask me how that happens.
the obvious problem is that fiddling with all of those fickle phosphorus fumes physically f***ed you up. It was very common for both men and women to form phosphoric necrosis of the jaw. The condition,
What?
nicknamed Fossy jaw,
What?
developed after the long-term exposure to phosphorus fumes. Initial
Why?
symptoms included simple toothaches, which evolved into complete tooth loss, abscesses, swelling of the gums, and complete necrosis of the jaw. To put it simply, your jaw rotted off. If you did get the jaw
Oh my
rot,
God.
there was about a 1 in 5 chance that the rest of your body would be rotting not long after
Oh
from
my
contracting
God.
an even worse condition known as death. In 1888, over 1,400 matchstick girls, fed up with this blatant disregard for their safety, decided to strike, demanding better pay, working conditions, and abolition of unfair fines and penalties. The strike lasted for 2 weeks before demanding.
Why the jaw? Like, if it was like, oh, you know, it's carcinogenic, it causes cancer, and you get like a brain tumor, I'd be like, okay. But it just eats your jaw. It just eats your jaw away. What? Oh my God. That's awful. That's so sad.
The British House of Commons completely banned the use of toxic white phosphorus in favor of the much safer and less toxic red phosphorus, which is what we use in matches today, but not in the match head, on the striking pad. So remember to light one up for the matchstick girls.
I actually meant to say this earlier, but I am just very blessed to have the job that I do. I get to react to videos, I get to play video games, I get to record other videos with my buddies, and I just want to take a moment to thank you guys so much for supporting these videos, leaving likes, commenting, just watching, just supporting in general. Thank you guys truly from the bottom of my heart for all the support over the years. Hand to God, I would not change it for the world. This is truly my dream job, and I am forever grateful to be in this position.
If you think your job's exhausting, try hauling an entire freaking ship up a river with your bros.
That sounds
These
awesome.
are burlacks, or barge haulers. They hauled barges. Typically dirt poor peasants just looking for enough coin to eat for a week, these men were tasked with strapping on a strap and using whatever strength they had left in them to pull in ships from the Caspian Sea all the way up the Volga River in the days of the Russian Empire. Since ship traffic was near constant thanks to strong trade, burlacks were in high demand to carefully guide the vessels up the Volga. But why couldn't the ships just sail up the river, you might ask? Because the Volga flows outward towards the Caspian Sea, and there were rarely favorable winds to propel a ship up the river, lest you risk beaching your entire ship on the banks. So why not hire a bunch of exhausted and desperate poor people to do the work instead? Whoa, slow down fellas, there's no need for us to be Russian. Depending on the load size, burlap groups could range from just a few men up to 150 fellas.
Wait, there's a bunch of women here doing it. What? I don't mean to be that guy, but like, I think there's some jobs should be for men and some should be not for men. I feel like if I say for women, for some reason that then becomes offensive, but like, this feels like a man's job to do. The men shall suffer and move the ships. I'm sure that this job was awful, by the way, and I'm not saying that it wasn't that bad, but I do feel like doing this occasionally would be very fun. Like, imagine it's you and the boys, and you all have a boat, and you beach the boat, and you're like, all right, well, now we gotta push the boat back into the ocean. That sounds very fun.
Pulling a single ship. But there was a moment of respite for these workers. See, one advantage to working in the Russian Empire was the cold winters. Can't exactly move ships upstream when the waterways are completely frozen over. So burlaks were seasonal, working dawn until dusk, thaw till frost. But since the combination of being poor and not working meant certain death, the men would pick up odd jobs in the winter to barely scrape by.
Hey, I make a duck. Smudge, smudge.
At the beginning of the 19th century, it is estimated that about 600,000 burlaks worked in the Russian Empire, but the evolution of ship technology and the invention of the steam-powered ship rendered the job obsolete. By the end of the 19th century, the burlak profession had vanished over the horizon.
That one doesn't seem like fun either. Next up, though, I really hope that this is actually about snakes. This could definitely be misconstrued as something way more sus. But next up, we have the snake milker. I don't even know if I want to know, but we're about to find out.
Now I know what you're thinking, so stop it. This has nothing to do with milking your own
Hey,
snake
yo!
or giving little pinches to little snake nips, which don't exist. Snakes aren't mammals. The job of a snake milker was to extract their venom from their fang.
Oh, okay, all right, my bad, my head was in the gutter. This was my head, now it's in the gutter, okay? But now I'm gonna take my head and put it back where it needs to be. It's no longer in the gutter, we're good. I understand it now.
Snake venom was highly coveted for use in early warfare as a biological weapon, granting you the ability to proc tick damage over time to your enemies if you weren't able to finish them off yourself.
I love the
Perhaps the
RuneScape
best
references.
weapons of choice to get slathered in the stuff were arrows. Lethality of arrows varied greatly. Take one in the skull? Yeah, sure, you're dead as a doornail. But take one in a less critical spot like an arm or a leg, assuming you don't sever an artery, and you might just live to see another day. But that all goes out the window if the arrow tip was dipped in some venomous drip. Quite a few civilizations have been noted for using envenomed or poisoned arrows throughout history. You've got the Khoisan people of southern Africa who have been using poisoned arrows for thousands of years in hunting large prey, and the Harmatilians who used viper venom against an invading Alexander the Great. But no army employed the use of snake venom better than the Scythians. Also duking it out against Alexander the Great, the Scythians developed their own iconic poison for warfare.
I'm pretty sure Alexander the Great dominated everybody and conquered almost half the world. So I guess these poison arrows weren't that effective, at least against Alexander the Great's army.
Combining not only viper venom, but also putrefied human blood and excrement, even minor scrapes from their weapons were lethal. So on top of dealing with being envenomed, you also dealt with the horrors of gangrene and tetanus. So with all that said and done, snake milkers. Like I said, it was their job to wrangle and wrestle up enough snakes to meet the demand of entire armies. But luckily, this wasn't a time for catch and release practices. Kill the snakes, take their venom. That's the job. Of course, that is easier said than done. By nature, snakes are shy little fellas and pretty hard to find. Chances are you get struck before you even noticed one. One catch of their fangs is enough for it to be game over. Snake milkers were considered lucky if they even managed to survive a single round of collecting.
Wait, wouldn't it be way more effective if they just kept all the snakes and then had them bite into a bucket? Like they do that now, that's how they extract poison now, or the venom now. That would have been way more effective. Next up we have the drummer boy. This is one of those that doesn't seem that bad based on the name, but I have a feeling this one might be the worst one yet. I'm not sure what it is about it, but it's giving me weird vibes.
Imagine getting ready to charge onto a battlefield to either invade a country or defend your own. You see your fellow soldiers gearing up for battle with their trusty firearms, and you're given a drum. I gotta fight. Drummers, believe it or not, were a critical part of warfare in the days of yore. Since there were no such things as radios or more instantaneous methods of communication, drummer boys were employed and trained to maintain order on the battlefield, signaling commands, attacks, retreats, and everything in between.
That's actually pretty cool. I thought that they were only used to essentially motivate their army to continue and push. But it does make sense that they use them as well to signal their entire army what they're trying to do. That's actually genius.
Drummer boys were typically in their teenage years or young adulthood. though some more famous drummer boys were much younger. Little Charlie King of the Union Army died in battle at the age of just 13, being the youngest casualty in the Battle of Antietam. Itty bitty Johnny Clem ran away from home and was taken in by the Union Army as a drummer boy at the ripe old age of 9. Just a few years later, the little fella fought in the Battle of Chickamauga in 1863 at the age of 12, where he shot and killed a Confederate soldier.
Wow.
What you gonna do? Shoot. He was promoted to sergeant, eventually retiring from the United States Army in 1915 as a brigadier general. But that's a rare occurrence. In reality, it would have gone more like this. Despite what people may think,
they don't give them any weapons at all. Like, why not give them like a little revolver in their back pocket that they can pull out just in case, you know? Bang! Just pop somebody real quick. Not even a sword. Like, they can hold extra things. They don't only need 2 little sticks and a drum.
Instead, they would relay commands from behind soldier lines, though they were still known to be valuable targets. If you break the communication line, you break down the army. Outside of combat, drummer boys had a wealth of other responsibilities, such as carrying messages between units, assisting battlefield surgeons with amputations, carting the wounded up the field, fetching supplies, or burying the dead. They very rarely carried weapons of their own, so if they had to defend themselves in the heat of battle, they were pretty shit out of luck.
Dude, just give them like I mean, maybe they didn't have pistols back then. Not even like a flintlock pistol? Nothing? A knife! Just give them a knife! Last, and I am going to imagine not least, we have the Groom of the Stool.
If you wanted to be one of the most influential people in all of England, but don't have a drop of royal blood in you, you'd want to squeeze into the role of the Groom of the Stool, a job requiring you to get up real close and personal with the king or queen at the
That guy doesn't look like me. I don't want one comment. Not one.
Look, we all have to go once or 12 times a day, so someone as prestigious and important as the king is gonna need help doing so. I mean, imagine feeling the sudden urge to blow out your britches, but you have to fight through said britches to accomplish the mission. Grooms of the Stool assisted the monarch with any labors regarding biological movement.
Bro, that toilet seat has been through war. Oh my god. The amount of bacteria and probably lice and disgusting foul creatures living in that, I don't even want to know. That is disgusting. It does look comfy, I'll give it that, but it is absolutely not worth it. Growing up, I had a friend who had one of those like toilet cushions that kind of looked like that, honestly. It was white. It was then a different shade after a long time. That's just disgusting. I'm sorry, it is.
This included helping the removal of clothing, preparation of the lavish and luxurious royal box, and the removal of the splendiferous
Okay, at least
salads,
they did clean it, okay.
but not before their proper examination. Yeah, that's right. Grooms of the Stool were not only tasked with cleaning up the royal slurry, but making sure that the passings were healthy, taking notes of any abnormalities in appearance or frequency. These notes would be passed on to the king's personal physician to diagnose any possible ailments.
I will say, I haven't done this, but I have heard that like sending your poop in to doctors to study is actually a really great way for them to get a good idea of how you're doing physically. It's like as good as sending blood and you get different results back. So I might actually do that at some point.
After the log was sent down the river, the Groom of the Stool would also assist in the cleanup effort, either by handing the king his own personal cleaning cloth or by taking up wiping duties themselves. Now you might think that this job sucked, but it was actually highly coveted and well respected, as Grooms of the Stool had access to the king outside of the public eye, allowing for valuable private conversations. Commonly high-ranking nobles or politicians, Grooms of the Stool were known to have influence in many formal rulings, laws, or personal life. So that Anne Boleyn chick's hot, right? No. The first documented Groom of the Stool dates all the way back to 1495 under King Henry VII. The role continued to evolve over the years to the title of Groom of the Stole, though they were more so referred to as either the gentleman or gentlewoman of the bedchamber, depending on the monarch in charge, with responsibilities eventually focusing solely on the king or queen's wardrobe. The position was held for over 400 years until being formally discontinued under King Edward VII in 1901.
I mean, how pretentious of a king do you have to have someone literally wipe your own butt cheeks? Just do it yourself, it's crazy. But anyway, that is another awful, awful job. I don't know which one was the worst, but if you do, make sure to comment your thoughts down below. And if you enjoyed that video, leave a like and click right here to watch another awesome one.